Let's start off with some sad news that happened over the weekend. The death toll in the Kintampo waterfall accident has risen to 18. Checks by Joy News have revealed the police have brought the search for further bodies in the water to an end because all the bodies have been retrieved. A number of parents and guardians are also trooping into the morgue to identify the wards. Let's get onto the phone lines now and speak to my colleague Anas a bit. Hello, Anas. Now, you are currently at the fall. What's the situation there?
Beatrice, good morning. And currently, I'm at the Kintampo waterfalls, and I've just finished speaking with the leading fireman, who's the PRO of the Kintampo Fire Station, K. Boateng. And he has disclosed to me that about 20 persons are confirmed dead.
So the toll has risen now to 20 persons, and that's
exactly.
According to who?
According to the leading fireman, K. Boateng, he's the PRO of the Kintampo Fire Station, and they are on the rescue mission. In fact, they were there all night yesterday, and they got back this morning to ensure that all those traps, all those police who have been trapped have been rescued or have been removed from the water. So this morning, they are checked, unable to get any more. But yesterday, instantly, the team retrieved 17 bodies, and later on, one person also died at the station. So about 12 were moved to the hospital, Kintampo Municipal Hospital. 2 more died at the hospital, raising the death to 20 at now.
All right, Anas, let's talk about families who are trooping to the various hospitals to identify their wards. Have you been able to speak to any family member, and what have they been telling you?
In fact, I'm heading towards the Kintampo Municipal Hospital. The waterfalls, I haven't spotted any member. But I know that most of these students, or most of those who lost their lives, are students of Wenchi Methodist to whom, according to the fire service, were on excursion. They went to Pada about 3 days ago, and they got to Kintampo yesterday. In fact, what actually happened is when the rain started, it started with heavy wind, and so the teacher who was, moving with these students instructed them to move out because of the intensity of the wind. So as they head towards the, topmost part of the falls, a tree fell at the top, blocking the road and then falling on one of the students. And that particular student died instantly. So the teacher instructed all the students to move back to the falls, to the water, so that when the wind is over, they will then move out. Unfortunately for them, when they got back, another big tree fell off the highest level of the falls, and this created the mess we've been observing. I'm currently at the morgue. So I've just arrived at the Kintampo Municipal Hospital, yet to speak to the authorities or people around to substantiate whether actually they are relatives or whether they've been more dead at this time.
All right, Anas, now we're picking some information that the Krontikini of the area is suggesting that there were certain rituals that were supposed to have performed, which were not done, and so it resulted in this accident. Are you picking any information like that?
Well, I spoke with some 2 or 3 guys who were there yesterday, and some of them, told me something similar. Even though they were not so sure, they told me there are so many things they could have been, that was initially done. And in recent times, they don't think those rituals have been ongoing. But all these things are suspicions, and I don't want to believe on them for now until proven. And I can say it's not only one tree that fell off. I counted close to 20 different trees that fell off. In fact, it was a heavy wind, and well, we have to thank God it wasn't on an occasion. I mean, on a holiday. The death toll could have been more than what we've been recording.
All right, thank you for those details, Anna Sabit. We'll come to you later at midday for more, and that's my colleague coming to us from the Bonoa Hafu region, Kintampo to be precise, giving us some updates of that particular accident that occurred yesterday. Now let's speak to Nanayao Akwada. He is the director of the Bureau of Public Safety on this particular issue. Good morning, sir. Thanks for your time.
Good morning and pleasure to have you.
All right. Now, after this accident occurred, there's been a lot of conversation around it. Obviously, investigations are not through, so we cannot conclude. But let's talk about an aspect of this that seems to be the trend of conversation is about public safety. For example, in some other waterfalls, you have certain areas cordoned off because of the potential danger they pose. Let's talk about this particular accident that happened. Do you think that all the safety measures were met?
Well, let me say good morning to your viewers. As to whether all safety measures were met or not, it's difficult for me to say. Nonetheless, accidents do happen, and they are always a chain of events that come together to, result in an accident. And it is important that on the back of this incident, we should get government and managers of such facilities to take drastic actions that will cut across the country's recreational and tourist facilities. It is important for us to understand that as a nation, if we have failed in conducting safety audits or risk assessment at our recreational sites, our tourist sites, some of these things are bound to happen. We saw canopy give way somewhere in the eastern region sometime last year. We have seen other incidents across the country where incidents have occurred at recreational sites or tourist sites, some of which resulted in deaths, but nothing drastic seems to have been done. It is important that we or the government takes upon itself that let Kintampo be the last and ride on the back of the lives of 19 students
18
who have perished to drive home necessary changes. We as a Bureau are suggesting that immediately a risk assessment or safety audits are conducted at all major recreational facilities or tourist sites. And then subsequent to that, every 6 months, risk assessments are done. As it stands now, we all know that there was a tree that fell off, but we believe that this tree did not just snap out of the ground. It gave signs. Probably there were erosion under the tree, there were the earth was cracking under the tree, and any man or anybody with a safety knowledge, with a professional background, hydrologists, geologists, and all, if they had been there to see this, they would be able to predict that this tree will fall someday, or it can fall someday, and so let's put in XYZ measures. If there were constant audits of the area, they would have been able to come up with a program that during rainy seasons or whenever there is a storm, everybody must evacuate from under the waterfall. But obviously, these programs were not in place, safety audits were not conducted, and we've been overtaken by this, and 19 lives have gone down.
It's actually 20, sir. It's now been confirmed. 20 lives have gone down the drain.
Probably counting, because we've also heard there are some also in critical condition. So we are talking 20 and counting.
So, I mean, you've given a lot of recommendations, and one that interests me in particular is the fact that probably we should consider people not visiting such sites when the rainy season is approaching, or when we are in the rainy season. But briefly, sir, to conclude your statement, what should we do in the interim or the long term, something that we can hold ourselves accountable to as a nation, so that this doesn't happen again?
Well, in the interim, immediately, we expect the authorities, the tourism authorities, to be able to identify some major tourist sites, shut all of them down, request for professionals to move in there, conduct safety audits, of the place, risk assessment of the place, and then come up with recommendations. And these recommendations will probably, as we do it in the realms, we have the short-term, medium-term, and the long-term recommendations, all of which will have to be, executed over time, so that at least when we take a break from the stress to such recreational sites or tourist sites, we are guaranteed of some safety at those places. And then in the medium term, we are expecting the government to actually identify an authority and request that every 6 months a safety audit report is submitted to this authority. And the people who have to carry out these safety audits must be people of competence, people who are not blind. Permit me to use the word blind, as in people who can see with a safety eye.
Okay, people who are trained.
Fantastic, people with competence, so that these people will conduct risk assessment of such facilities and submit reports to an oversight agency that will oversee that these reports are, followed to the letter. To grant some safety assurance to revelers.
Nana, as the director of the Bureau of Public Safety, do we have enough of such personnel if you're supposed to send people across board all our recreational facilities or tourist sites to ascertain our safety there? Do we have enough people?
Well, I believe as a country we have hydrologists, we have geologists, and it will depend on every area and the people you need to put together. So the safety professional, and then we have some professionals who apply themselves in the area. For instance, if I'm going to check the safety at the park, some professionals I will need in addition to the safety professional. There will be places where you need engineers in addition to a safety professional. All of these professionals, I believe they are bound, and we must be able to take the bull by the horn to do all of these things. If it's a place, depending on the place, we will need to assemble a team that will be competent enough to bring a safety eye to the facility.
Thank you very much for your time and recommendations. That was Nana Yao Akwada. He's the director of the Bureau of Public Safety, speaking on the back of the tragic incident that occurred at the Kintampo Fall yesterday. May the souls of those who've departed rest in peace, and our condolences to the families. Now, at least 3 students were stabbed at the University of Cape Coast following violent clashes between some students of the University of Ghana and the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. Now, another student is reportedly paralyzed after he was stabbed several times on his way back from night studies. All incidents happened over the weekend. Richard Kojunyako reports.
Of Atlantic Hall, Continental Hall, and Commonwealth Hall allegedly led the attack that led to the stabbing of 3 students. Many minor injuries have been recorded as a result of the skirmishes that started Saturday dawn. One of the students who was returning from night studies and was wearing Ogwa Hall t-shirts was stabbed severally by the student that attacked Ogwa Hall, leaving him paralyzed. Everything, glass and wood of Ogwa Hall has been destroyed. Vehicles belonging to the hall and a private vehicle have also been destroyed, as well as many losses that are yet to be calculated. The students from Commonwealth Hall, Continental Hall and ATL are alleged to have armed themselves with stones and machetes, attempted entering Ogwa Hall after the Power Night event of ATL as part of their Hall Week celebration. Their entry was fiercely resisted by the hallers of Ogwa.
I think the police didn't actually help, because I was here last night. I left here around 1 a.m. After 1 a.m., the district police commander was here with his other men, and we gave them every information that we got or that we had, and we told them that these people are going to start the program. Afterwards, there will be a clash. Definitely, they will come back, and they promised to be stationed here and make sure order is restored. But to be frank with you, I think the police came here just to help them destroy our things here. They help them to overpower us and they just help them to vandalize everything that we have here. Because I really don't understand. This is waterfallers. They are in their premises, and the people are coming from there. So how come the bullets were thrown?
Did you actually see bullets or tear gas?
Actually disarm our guys here. They went inside
And then they
gave them the opportunity to come here and destroy everything there.
Iyebediakun, hall master of Ogwa Hall, tells Joy News their intelligence suggested that the 8-year hall and the associates were planning an attack and subsequently alerted the police.
I can ask for the minor injuries. There were many of them. But the serious ones, I could count 3, where one was stabbed at the neck, the back there. And as we are told now, the person has been referred to Kolebu, and he's at Kolebu now. Konfanoche Hospital now. And then the other person, he was stabbed at the stomach and was at the UCC hospital. And the other one also had his leg broken. So these are the 3 I saw with my eyes.
Police threw tear gas and rubber bullets in their attempt to deal with the situation. This forced dozens of students who milled through the tiny entrance of the hall, causing varying degrees of injuries. Student and hall authorities have blamed the police for their poor handling of the situation. But the police say they cannot be faulted because the event overwhelmed them, and in the exigencies of the situation, the police acted professionally using a calculated force.
One more person was attacked with a machete by some unidentified students of the University of Cape Coast after the Ogwa Hall was attacked by students of Commonwealth Unity and 8-year Hall over the weekend. The Central Regional Police Command says it is increasing its presence on the campus of the university as it continues its investigations to arrest the perpetrators of the clashes that led to severe injuries on students and destruction of property. Irene Opong is the PRO of the Central Regional Police.
He came out as a Muslim to do his ablution, and then he heard some students shouting. He is part of the visiting students who came to attack us. So one person with cutlass attacked him on the left arm and then on the forehead and at his back. So when we went there, he has cutlass wounds on the arm, forehead, and his back, but he was responding to treatment when we went there. For now, the situation is under control, and the UCC police is monitoring as well. We assess the situation. There was an immediate need for us to protect life and property because the students were attacking each other with objects, stones, and the rest. So we're much interested in making sure that we don't have much casualties. And secondly, in situations like that, if you attempt to make an arrest, that can even escalate the situation. So we kept our calm and were able to put things under control. However, in police investigations, when we go to things like that and we don't make arrests, it doesn't mean that during further investigations we cannot make an arrest. As I'm talking to you, we are giving invitation to some personalities that we think that they could be of help to us in this case.
Let's go live now to the University of Cape Coast. My colleague Richard Kojonyako is there standing by. Good morning, Richard. You're on the campus currently. What can you report? Has this incident in any way affected studies and business of the day?
Venice, yes, the campus is calm. The police say they are firmly in control. Teaching and learning, they are going on effectively. And but the university management is undertaking or is going or in a meeting of some sort to actually help address the problem. And the students, there are a lot of the students here that are worried because they are saying that the university should ban all the hall weeks that are being celebrated because the dean of students who was speaking this morning said that, I mean, they have banned all foreign students from coming or entering the campus of the university, so that they, let alone even coming to partake in some events. And the dean of students even told the ATLFM management, ATL, the Atlantic Hall management that they should not go on unless they disclose the people that are coming for the event. But they told to do so, and they allowed them to go on with the activity. So I've also been speaking with the police administration, and they say that they are on top of the situation. They are currently inviting some people to interview in order to effect the arrest. If you go to the university notice board, 2 students have currently been rusticated, and the rustication means that they are going to sit at home. They've not been dismissed, but they are going to stay in the house for 1 full year, and then they will resume their activities. And it follows similar clashes that occurred last year. And so that is currently what is happening. I would want to speak with some of the students that are very close to me for them to share their perspective on what exactly is happening. And Emmanuel Edu joins me. Emmanuel, good morning. Good morning. Well, so what can you tell us about these clashes? I mean, you were on campus. What can you tell us about it?
Well, it's such an unfortunate incident that was, and what we are looking at is the fact that the university authorities will go ahead and do what is reasonable, but by, for instance, making sure those who are responsible or those who are irresponsible will face the law, not only students, but even the administrators of the halls and even management of the university, because such an incident should not be allowed to happen on university campuses. It makes all of us, not safe in our academic discourse.
Okay, so Benny, you heard me speak to one of the students of the University of Cape Coast, and they appear very worried, and they want sanctions to be meted out to the perpetrators of them.
All right, Richard, let's focus on the students who were injured as a result of this clash over the weekend. What is the latest on them?
Well, they are currently responding to treatment, and yesterday the police administration and the university authorities visited a few of them that are in Cape Coast, and we are told that one is currently at the 37 military hospital, the one who was stabbed twice on the spine, and he got paralyzed. The others that also were stabbed in the lower abdomen, and there was one that also received some machete wounds. They are all responding to treatment. And so the campus is very calm as we speak, and no untoward action or event has been reported, with the exception of the reprisal attacks that happened yesterday, where a student from the Cape Coast Technical University received some machete wounds from some student who mistook him for a student from either the Unity Hall or the Commonwealth Hall. And so that is what currently is happening.
All right, Richard, just for some clarification, we have the number of injured persons at 4 now.
Come again?
I'm saying that the number of persons injured is 4 now, is it?
Okay, well, those who sustained critical injuries are 3, and now it's 4 now. But there are others that also received some minor injuries, because there are some people that suffered as a result of the pelting of stones, and so some of the stones hit the heads and other parts of the bodies of that people, but some of them have been treated and discharged at the University of Cape Coast Hospital.
All right.
As we speak now, we cannot really put a number or a figure to the number of people that just got injured, but with the exception of the people that are in critical condition.
All right, thank you very much, Richard Kojonyako, for those updates. Richard was coming to us live from the University of Cape Coast campus. Now, a student development expert and a research fellow at the Institute of Educational Planning and Administration at the University of Cape Coast, Dr. Mike Boakye-Yadom, has described as embarrassing clashes at the University of Cape Coast over the weekend that led to severe injuries and destruction of property. According to him, behaviors such as these suggest a missing link in the training and upbringing of students in the country's tertiary institutions. Dr. Mike Boakye-Yadom wants the universities in the country to improve their curricula by adding community services that will make students reflect upon life and its consequences so as to improve the mindset and help in their holistic education.
That is unfortunate, it's embarrassing, and it's sad. If our students are behaving this way, stabbing people, destroying property, being too violent and unexpected, then I see a missing link. in addition to all the disciplinary issues, which I know taken care of by the various universities. If our students are behaving this way, then for me, there is a missing link. What is missing in their training, in their upbringing, that makes them want to stab the fellow students, not knowing whether the person is going to die. So that is what I want to look at. And I believe that in addition to all that we do in the classroom, I will still repeat that we need to look at some out-of-class curricular activities that will take the students out into the communities, understand the realities within our communities, understand the realities of life, do some community service, have time for reflection, have time to even visit the prisons, for instance, for some inmates who have been violent and are incarcerated, to share the experience with our students. I think for me, these are some of the reflective components of our educational system that we need to emphasize for us to begin to experience changes in behavior. We will go ahead and punish them. Some might face various sanctions, but will these sanctions lead to change of behavior? Sometimes our disciplinary process tends to be more punitive than educational. So I believe that a lot must be done in terms of supporting these students to develop. And I'll just share one example. If we have some activities on campus that will help our students to be able to manage emotions better, to be able to control their anger better, some of these things may not happen. The students can't do this by themselves. They need our support.
So is this the only solution to the problem? Well, joining me on the phone lines is Dr. Kingsley Ajay. He's a security analyst to talk about this matter with the security perspective in mind. Good morning, sir. Thank you for your time.
Good morning, and thanks for having me.
Sure, sir. Now, let's talk about this. Now, a lot of people have expressed such shock at the fact that students can pick up a machete or whatever device it is to stab another person. Let's talk about what informs some of these decisions among students. This is not the first time you're hearing of this. In fact, last year during the matriculation service for matriculation program for students at the University of Ghana, Legon, some students from the Commonwealth Hall actually vandalized some property, and so the program had to be postponed. We've had a lot of stories about student vandalism and all that. What exactly is prompting this sort of behavior?
Well, thanks for the question, and let me say that if you ask any student who stabbed another person in the event we're talking about, that student would not know exactly why he or she did that. The reason is that that student was in the crowd. So I'm speaking not as an administrator, not even as a lecturer, but I'm speaking purely from a theoretical point of view from as to why people in a crowd would do the things that we don't expect them to do. I listened attentively to my colleague who just spoke on your network, about student behavior and the training they're having and all that. Make a president a student today. Make a CEO a student today. If we're not careful, they will behave the way the students have behaved. And the reason has to do with the crowd. You know, when people get into a crowd, which is a temporary gathering of individuals who share common focus of interest, they lose certain things that ordinary people and individuals walking about would have. For example, I can mention about 7 myths that characterize crowd behavior. The first is the myth of irrationality. And it is the idea that individuals in a crowd lose rational thought. They lose their rational thought to the crowd. The second is the myth of emotionality. The idea that individuals in a crowd become more emotional. Any little thing that occurs, because they even don't know the reason why that is occurring, they become emotional. And the emotionality comes from the fact that they hear others, you know, making such statements that would arouse them to behave the way that those who cherish those ideas or those who muted the ideas would want them to cherish. There is also the myth of suggestibility, and that is that the individuals in a crowd are more likely to obey or imitate what others are doing in the crowd. And they have no reason to question, so they accept anything that goes on in the crowd, NEMCOM. There is also the myth of destructiveness, the idea that individuals in a crowd are more likely to be violent, and they act violently to destroy. So they don't care. If you see your brother or any of your siblings in a crowd charging on you, and you think because your brother or a sibling is in the crowd, so you would be there, you wouldn't run away, you would find yourself killed.
All right, Doc, so are you suggesting in any way that the way we can solve this problem is, do we need to stop them from, grouping or congregating? Is that the solution to the problem?
You cannot, no. You cannot ask students not to group, but I think that there are some gatherings that are unholy, if I should put it that way. There are some gatherings that need to, on the basis of what has happened, be really strictly gathered. For example, you have the police on campus that should be able to make sure that whenever these kinds of gatherings are happening, they are there to monitor the situation and to make sure that early warning signs are, taken on and then dealt with immediately. Otherwise, people outside of the university will get sick of university students, people gathering for entertainment or for what, end up killing others. It's not allowed anywhere. So the point I want to raise is that, well, students can gather. You cannot have a university where students do not gather, even from other universities coming together and maybe for entertainment or for sports or whatever. And mind you, crowds are not only in universities. In terms of, we can have crowds on the field of football. We can have crowds anywhere you can think of. The point, the concert and others, the point, however, is that because we have this checkered history, because we have these things happening, the things you mentioned earlier, that even last year something like that happened, I think the police should have been more proactive. That knowing that Commonwealth and Atlantic and all other students were meeting there, they should have been proactive enough to prevent these things happening. Right now, those students that have been wounded, the one that has been paralyzed, what do we do? The point that we cannot even arrest one of them because of the crowd. What do you do? What is the fate of that student? So I think I'm calling on university authorities. If possible, some of these gatherings could be banned, even though I am not very, very happy that such events wouldn't happen. But by virtue of the fact that these things happen and then people suffer, I'm calling on university authorities to ban some of these activities that could lead to the death and wounding of some students. If we can do that, apart from doing that, or if we are not able to do that, then there must be laws, strict laws. We must make sure the security agencies are up to task whenever these things are happening. Otherwise, whenever you have a crowd of students, you expect these things to happen, and therefore we need to take action to nip them in the bud.
All right. Thank you very much for your time, Dr. Kingsley J. We appreciate your contribution to the conversation. That was Dr. Kingsley J, security expert, speaking on the back of the clashes that occurred at the Ogwa Hall of the University of Cape Coast over the weekend. You're watching Joy News Desk with me, Benis Abubed. It's now time to bring you some business stories, and Emmanuel Abwajiriafe is standing by.